Hey everyone, it's Marvin. Thanks so much for listening to Books and Boba. I just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that Books and Boba just launched our Patreon to help support our future endeavors. Rira and I have been running Books and Boba for the last 6.5 years, and we've always talked about wanting to do more, including expanding our content offerings, being able to go to book events and do more coverage. And so to help us get closer to those ambitions, we started a Patreon to help us grow and to better support books by Asian and Asian American authors. We are offering 2 tiers for our Patreon. The first is our regular Boba member coming in at $3 a month, which will give you access to our brand new Books and Boba Discord server, so you can engage with your fellow Books and Boba Club members and also Rira and myself in real time. This is where we'll be aiming to move the bulk of our book club discussions, but rest assured we'll still have a presence on Goodreads as well. And our premium tier is our Honey Boba member tier, coming in at $5 a month, where in addition to access to our Discord server, you'll also get access to our monthly Boba Chats, a bonus podcast where Rira and I and some guests will get together each month and have a more casual discussion on stuff that may or may not be book related, as well as answer some listener Q&A. Honey Boba members will also have access to a poll to help decide an official Books and Boba book pick once per quarter. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, support Books and Boba on Patreon by going to patreon.com/booksandboba. As always, Rira and I really appreciate your support. All right, thanks for listening, and I'm on with the show. Hey everyone, it's Marvin and Rira here. Just wanted to, I guess, check in with all of you. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you all are staying safe and healthy. It's been quite a few weeks. We decided not to release our end of month episodes because it just didn't seem or didn't feel like the right time to put out content in the midst of everything that's happening. So these episodes are coming at you about a week and a half late. This episode will be the last recap of our Asian Books Challenge of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, which, Rira, can you believe that that was just a week ago?
It feels like, it feels like it's been 3 months, even though it was literally a week and a half ago. It just didn't seem like the right time to promote anything that we were making, because I didn't want to take away from the Black creators who are trying to promote their work and also speak out in the protests. So thank you to everyone who listened to our podcast and for their patience. I hope you enjoy our recap of our Asian Books Challenge. And thank you to everyone who participated, by the way. It's just been so, I checked the hashtags, and just to see so many books by Asian and Asian American authors, it's a great place to find recommendations. So thank you for everyone who participated.
Yeah, we're in the middle of what appears to be some, I dare say, revolutionary change in our country, or at least on the cusp of it. We're not there yet. There's been a lot of promises made, and I think in the next few weeks we'll see if those promises are fulfilled by the government, right? But yeah, it's a very I want to say historic time for, especially in our lifetimes, that we're seeing this type of history being made in front of us.
Yeah, it's been just really, really hard. I feel overwhelmed, but I just think about, the Black community. They're going through much more than what I'm feeling right now, what a lot of Asian Americans are feeling right now. It's been really encouraging to see young people take charge in a lot of the protests, and also just book Twitter in general. It's been really nice to see people recommend really good books by Black authors and Black queer authors as well, since it's Pride Month. It's been great to see an uplift of Black voices. I just hope that this continues. I hope it's not we bought a bunch of books by Black authors. We did our share of the work. Good job. I hope that people actually, like, there's been a lot of sales for anti-racist books. And I'm just curious as to, are people going to actually sit down and read them? And are people actually going to keep this going after the hashtag doesn't trend anymore? It's something that comes to mind like really frequently for me. So, yeah, it's been overwhelming, but also encouraging. Like you said, it's like a historic moment for us in our lives.
Yeah. And also thank you to everyone who's fighting, whether you're protesting on the streets or supporting from home or just calling your representatives and letting your voice be heard. I think everyone fights in their own way, and it's been really great to see at least our generation really step up and stand alongside the Black community, because Black Lives Matter, and it's been great to see people really fighting to become the change that they want to see, to create the world that they want to see.
Yeah, like not that long ago, we talked to Christina Sintornvad, and her book was about, revolution. It's about like young people being able to make a difference, even in the smallest ways. So, it's been really great to see our generation and also Gen Z really stepping up and, using their knowledge and resources and energy to really bring this movement to new heights.
So yeah, on behalf of Books and Boba, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for sticking with us. And if you're interested in learning more ways that you can support, we're including some links in our show notes on this episode with resources that can help you find ways to support the movement as well. So I guess now the show.
You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Hey, welcome back to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And it is the end of May. And man, Rira.
Yes.
First of all, how are you doing? Because it's been, between the last time we talked and today, it's been probably one of the most stressful weeks for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And like, that's us as like East Asians living in like the east side of Los Angeles. Like, I can't even imagine how it is for like other people in LA right now, especially people who live further downtown.
Actually, my town had a protest today, and there were like several hundred people. And
really?
And things did get pretty heated. So
wow.
That was a little bit stressful. And then we, you and I both have friends who have been on the front lines for the protests in downtown LA. So
yeah,
just worried about them as well. So it's been pretty tense over the last like week and a half. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that May is done.
I mean, we all thought we're in a pandemic, everyone's going to be like focused on like fighting the same thing. And then, as often happens in the books we read, complications get thrown in, and things that have been set up for the first, let's say, like 100 acts of this country has finally boiled over again.
Yeah, doesn't it feel like a season finale of a post-apocalyptic show, but the showrunners don't know how to end the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it feels right now.
So it is the end. We're recording this on May 31st. We're coming at you a little bit later. This episode is going to actually be our last recap for our Asian Books Challenge for Asian American Heritage Month. Our discussion of our May book club pick, The Woman Warrior, will be coming out later this week, hopefully. Rira and I, or more likely, I kind of woke up in a funk and just wasn't in the right headspace to talk about a book. So we're going to bring it to you a little bit later.
I think people will understand. So yeah, I think we left off on day 23 of our Asian Books Challenge, and the category for that was graphic novel as well as graphic memoir.
Yeah, just any novel with graphics in it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So what did you pick for this one?
For day 23, my personal pick was They Called Us Enemy by George Takei and Justin Eisinger and Stephen Scott. And it was illustrated by Harmony Becker. It's a graphic memoir about George Takei's childhood when he and his family were sent to a Japanese-American internment camp during World War II. So I have not read this book yet. That's not true. I read like the first couple of pages, but I unfortunately was not able to finish it. But it looks great. And I've heard wonderful things about it.
Yeah. I think throughout this books challenge, we've talked at length about a couple books that have to do with internment and how it's something that's people often say it's a dark stain on American history. And it's definitely something that not a lot of people know about past like the surface level history, which is like Japanese Americans were incarcerated during World War II. So anything to make this content more accessible, I think will go a long way to building empathy. And especially with the big name attached to it, like George Takei, who lived through it. And it's kind of wild to have people still alive who lived through that stuff when the tensions and the rhetoric that caused all that pain is like appearing again.
Yeah. And it's written in a child's point of view. It's written from like when George Takei was a kid, when he was at this camp. So I think this is the first graphic work I've seen tackle the subject. So it's interesting. I wonder how young readers will be able to read it and comprehend some of the content.
Yeah. So my pick for day 23 was Monstrous, which is the ongoing like comic book series written by Marjorie Liu and illustrated by Sana Takeda. Set in alternate 1900s Asia, like say like post-war era, in a world that's it's Asian inspired fantasy, and it's a world that's dominated by matriarchal societies, and involves a girl who has like a cosmic being bonded to her that gives her powers, and her quest for revenge pretty much against the people who killed her mother. It was one of our first book club picks. I think it was either a second or third book club pick for Books and Boba.
I think it was our third
that was
book.
when the first volume comes out. I think the latest chapter just came out probably this week. It's a really intense story. Rira, how have you caught up since we finished that first? Because the first volume was like chapters 1 through 5, and now they're up to I think 25 or 30. Like they've already released like a trade with the first 3 volumes, and now they're in like volume 5.
No, I have not caught up, but I definitely should. I'm the type of person when it comes to like graphic novels, comics, and mangas, I like wait until it's like there's like enough chapters where I can just like sit down and like read a bunch of chapters in like one day. So I think now Monstrous is at that point where I can like buy a tome and just sit down and finish it within a day.
But the story is definitely ramping up, and it's going to be that kind of thing where, sometimes you fall off of a series, and then so it's like it comes to like season 4, right? And it's on streaming now. So you binge the 4 seasons and you finally catch up, and then you're like, damn, I need to wait like 3 months for the next chapter now because I've caught up. I've binged it. That is how the series is.
Okay. Well, as someone who has been reading the same manga for like 18 years, waiting for it to end, I think I have the patience. And like just a quick note for Books and Boba's official pick, I put up Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomni Sun. It was also one of our book club picks early on. And I think this is a perfect book to read during quarantine and all of the horrible events that are happening. It's very light. You can finish it within maybe 2 hours. It's full of humor and heart. So I do recommend it to those who have not read it yet.
Definitely, because I think, your pick was pretty heavy. My pick, Monsters, is pretty dark and graphic. So if you're looking for something that won't make you sad, definitely Jomni's book is the way to go.
All right, moving on to day 24, Asian superhero.
Yeah, so this one I picked again, it's a Books and Boba pick. It's actually our inaugural pick. This is the first book we ever read for this book club. And it's Heroine Complex, the first book of the Heroine Complex series by Sarah Kuhn, about a world that's under constant threat of demonic invasion. And the only line of defense for San Francisco is a superhero named Avita Jupiter and her personal assistant, which is her best friend, who actually has powers of her own. And it's a really fun book. I really enjoyed it. I still need to catch up. I haven't read the third book yet, and it's been on my TBR list for ever. Sorry, Sarah. I don't think I was supposed to tell you that. But it's a really fun book. And fun fact is, so Sarah Kuhn wrote a lot of this book in a bookstore that she frequents in Culver City, California, called The Ripped Bodice, which is a bookstore that sells primarily romance novels. And so you can kind of see some of that influence in her book, because this story also includes one of the first ever love scene I've ever read in a book. And I think it was the first time I've ever seen people be super horny in a novel. And I've never been the same since.
Yeah, I think I was pretty surprised too. You can you can listen to our first episode, and we do talk about the side of horniness and how it kind of caught us all off guard. My pick is also a Books and Boba pick. It's Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee. And it's part of the Sidekick Squad series. And we actually interviewed CB for our podcast. And what I really love about this book is it's a fun twist on the superhero genre. It's post-apocalyptic, and you have a wonderful queer, diverse cast. And it just goes to show that even in a post-apocalypse where your parents are superheroes, you can still find ways to disappoint them. So it's a really fun book. I think it's also a pretty good book to read during quarantine. It's light and it's funny and also very smart.
All right. Day 25, Asian MC with a disability. Rira, what did you pick here?
I picked This Is My Brain in Love by I.W. Gregorio. We had Eileen not that long ago on our show. And for me, I have generalized anxiety disorder, and I also have clinical depression, just like the two protagonists in the book. And I thought it was such a great portrayal of what it's like to be someone who's from a marginalized group and have mental illness, and trying to figure out a way to cope with that when you're still a teenager. I thought it was a really, really good portrayal of that. So that was my pick.
Mine's, again, is a book club pick. Everything Here is Beautiful by Mira T. Lee, which we read, I think, last fall. It's a book about two sisters, the younger one, who suffers from, I don't think they ever define it in the book, or they never have a clear diagnosis, but it's some sort of schizophrenic disorder, and how that affects the relationship between the two sisters. Yeah, it's not a particularly happy read. It takes a very, I guess, would you say raw or realistic look at the effects of not only mental illness on the person who has it, but also the people around them, and how it affects their world and kind of defines who they become.
Yeah, and I think it also raises some important questions about the broken state of our healthcare system, and just how culture can affect our perspective on mental illness, because as we've spoken on previous episodes, mental illness is still kind of a taboo in the Asian American community. and also
I think
other
in, like,
minority
immigrant communities
groups
in general, right? And like,
yeah, immigrant communities in general. And I think the book did a really good job, like showing how, like what their perspective is on mental illness and how to cope with it and like why it's considered taboo. So yeah, we talk a lot about that on our episode, on our book discussion episode.
yeah.
All right, day 26, Asian American Literature Classic. What did you pick, Marvin?
For this one, I picked No No Boy by John Okada, which is I guess it's considered a classic. I mean, Penguin obviously thinks so when he tried to steal the rights to it last year. It's a book written by another person who was formerly incarcerated. It's about the No No Boys, who are so the generally, I guess, accepted narrative of Japanese incarceration, where Japanese Americans are put into incarceration camps because they question their loyalty, and then a group of men volunteer to join the army to prove their loyalty, and that's what's formed the 442nd. The story that's not often told are the draft resistors, right? The people who explicitly decided not to join the army, not to denounce their Japanese heritage, and to pledge undying loyalty to the United States. Like the people who, like we kind of see today, felt that why should they prove their loyalty when the country isn't like reciprocating, right? So
yeah, when they're seen as enemy of the state, when they're literally sending them to concentration camps, like why should they pledge loyalty to a country that has betrayed them? So, yeah.
And so this is a story about the repercussions, because these people were obviously also ostracized within the community for like not advancing the narrative that Japanese people are just as American. Sound familiar? And yeah, it's a classic that John Okada wrote and published, and it didn't actually become popular or successful until after his death, when someone in Seattle kind of found the manuscript or found the novel and like republished it. So it's definitely a classic that is taught I think it's required reading for a lot of like intro to Asian American lit classes, and for good reason, because it's such an important like hidden narrative that we're not exposed to.
Yeah, and like how it got published is probably just as important as the story that he tells in his novel.
Yeah.
I picked, this is a pick that Marvin has already mentioned in a previous day's prompt. My pick was Farewell to Manzanar, which was published in 1973. Also a book about Japanese American internment, and it's a memoir by Jean Wakatsuki Houston. Since Marvin already talked about it in a previous episode, I'm just going to mention Books and Boba's official pick for the literature classic category. And that was The Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston, which was our book for May 2020.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in our discussion episode, but what was your overall thought on it? Or I guess like, is there a thought that you want to share?
I thought so. We're obviously going to be talking more in depth about this book in our next episode. I want to say that I'm glad I finally got to read it. I found it really interesting, in context too, because of like the controversies around it and the critical analysis since it got published in, I think, the 70s. So I think we have a lot to talk about in terms of how this book, both in what this book has to say, like the text itself, and also the context of the text in like when it was published and what people think about it.
Yeah. I was pretty surprised when I read like the first chapter, the first story of the book, because it's been pitched to me as nonfiction, as a memoir, as an autobiography. And it's just a really weird genre blend of like folklore and, like not all of the perspectives are from Maxine's point of view. So I was pretty surprised at like the structure of it. And the style is like really interesting. It's something that I haven't really seen in literature overall. So I was pretty surprised by that.
Yeah. I mean, it's Asian culture, Chinese cultures in particular. I can't speak to any other culture, does tend to tell histories through story. So I think that was something that resonated with me with how the stories were told. And yeah,
We'll talk more about it.
Next up, day 27, West Asian main character. So longtime listeners of Books and Boba will know that when we talk about Asian and Asian American authors, we're talking about the most broadest categorization of what Asia is. And that involves everything from East Asia all the way to what's colloquially known as the Middle East. For that, we use the definition West Asia to define that. So we're talking about Syria, Persia, Turkey, Persia,
Iran,
Iraq, Iran, that area. So for people who are confused by our definitions, that's what it means. What did you pick for this, Rira?
I picked Darius the Great is Not Okay by Adi Khorram.
I picked that one too.
It really resonated with me. If you follow Books and Boba on Twitter, you'll see that I recommend this book pretty often when it comes to lists or just like answering other people's questions about book recommendations. This is also a book that touches upon what it's like to have depression. So, but it's actually like a very breezy read. It's a slice of life novel. And
I mean, it's a lot of genres.
It's a lot of genres, yeah.
It's also a Return to the Motherland book. It's a coming of age book. It's would you say it's kind of like a rom-com? More like a low-key indie rom-com type.
Yeah, it's a low-key indie rom-com. If I could totally see this as an independent film. I don't know if it got optioned or if, they're planning on making it into an adaptation, but I would love to see it. But yeah, I really, really like this book. I think it's a very heartwarming book. It teaches you that even though you're an outcast, there's always going to be that one person out there who feels like home and makes you feel like you belong. And it also touches upon what it's like to not speak the language that your family speaks and not feeling that you're Asian enough or an American enough. So I think it touches upon a lot of important things and just beautifully captures it all, in my opinion.
I agree. Speaking of trip to the motherland stories, day 28 is exactly that. It's summer trip to the motherland.
In hindsight, I should have made that broader. I should have just said trip to the motherland. Because all of the books I thought of that I thought fit into that prompt were actually different seasons. It's not a summer trip, it's a winter trip. Or it's a spring trip.
I kind of stressed the interpretation for my pick because I had already chosen Love Boat Taipei and Darius the Great is Not Okay. So I was like, damn, I did not strategize these picks well. But, what did you pick for this one?
So I picked I Love You So Mochi by Sarah Kuhn, the author of the Heroine Complex series. And this takes place in the spring and not the summer. It's about a Japanese American girl who, wants to study fashion when she goes to college. And she gets invited to go to Kyoto, where her estranged grandparents live. And during her spring break, she befriends a boy and there's some meet cute stuff happening. And I just really love travelogue books. So this was definitely my jam.
So this is a Sarah Kuhn joint. So I have to ask, how horny is it?
It's a middle grade novel. No, none of that. And like you said, Love Boat Taipei, that was Books and Boba's official pick for this category. And we talked to Abigail on our show. So if you want to check that interview out, that's episode 88.
Oh, lucky 88.
Lucky 88.
Yeah. My pick for this category was, like I said, I stretched the prompt a little bit to fit this, was The Leavers by Lisa Ko. It's a dual narrative story about a mother who has to give up her son because she gets deported back to China, and also the son who gets adopted by a white family and his search for closure on that separation. So, and part of that involves a trip back to his hometown in Fujian, China, in search for his mother and the family that kind of left him behind, right? So it is a former Books and Boba book club pick. So if you want to hear more of our thoughts about the book, you can search out that episode. But it's definitely a book that I recommend for people to read. But again, it's also a more it's a more
serious read.
Yeah.
You have to be in like the right mental headspace for it. And on our episode, we actually had Lily Rugo, our friend, who's a bookseller and who's also a Chinese American adoptee. And she also talked about her experience as an adoptee and how she related to the adoptee in the book. So I do highly recommend that you listen to that episode. So moving on, day 29, nonfiction by an Asian author.
Yeah. So for this one, I picked Serve the People, Making Asian America in the Long 60s by Karen Ishizuka. Karen Ishizuka is the chief curator at the Japanese American National Museum. And this is a book that covers like the Asian American movement in the civil rights era of the 60s, which I think in this like current climate and time is something that more people should learn about, right? So for any Asian American out there interested in learning about our community's roots, and history in civil rights organizing and movements and solidarity, definitely it's a book that's worth reading. You know, we're all talking and thinking about how to become better allies and better advocates for minorities in this country, right? So there are resources like this that will give you the context to, you know, move forward and find your place in everything.
Yeah, definitely. And I've also seen this book be picked as I've also seen this book floating around for this prompt as well. So definitely other people agree. What did I pick? Wow. Okay. For day 29, I picked E.J. Ko's memoir, The Magical Language of Others. I have not read this memoir because, much like Pachinko, this is a book that I want to read, but I am also really terrified of reading it. So in her memoir, E.J. Ko, she shares stories about her tumultuous teen and young adult years after her parents moved to South Korea, after her father gets like a lucrative job offer. And what's supposed to be a temporary 3-year absence turns into several years, almost a decade, I think. Probably more than a decade. But it's about EJ just kind of, missing her parents and not having the support that she needed during that time and learning how to reconcile with her mother. And a lot of the memoir consists of letters that EJ's mom sent her. And they're translated, and they also have like the original Korean letters. So I'm very intrigued, but I'm very, very hesitant to read it because I have a very complicated relationship with my mother. And also, like, I was in a similar situation where, like, my dad did get a pretty good job offer, but he turned it down. So I didn't end up like EJ. So yeah, it's a book that I'm pretty scared to read, but I really want to read it. A lot of our Instagram followers have said wonderful things about it. I've seen this book like featured in so many best books of 2020 lists. So I am excited to read it once I'm in the right headspace for it.
Okay, moving on to day 30 of Asian Books Challenge, which is a 2020 debut novel. Rhea, what'd you pick for this one?
So for day 30, I picked The Silence of Bones by June Her. It's set in 1800s Korea, so during Joseon Dynasty. And it follows Tamo. And Tamo is an indentured servant to the police bureau. And they're women. And their job is to pretty much like help the police investigate in areas where men can't investigate. So the main character is a 16-year-old Tamo. And she is tasked with assisting this very well-respected young inspector who has been charged with murder. So there you go. It's a very interesting premise. I'm all for historical mystery. novel. I'm all for historical mysteries because you don't have like the fancy gadgets that we have now.
Yeah, there's no forensics, right?
Yeah, of course not. They don't even have fingerprints.
No chemicals. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, actually. Definitely a book that I want to put on my TBR pile as well, because I want to see, different spins on the detective story. My pick for this category is Stand Up Yumi Chung by Jessica Kim, which is, well, it wasn't a book club pick, but we did interview Jessica when the book first came out. It's a middle grade novel about Yumi Chung, who is 12-year-old girl who dreams of becoming a stand-up comedian, but her parents who own a Korean barbecue do not approve. And so it's about that coming of age tension between first and second generation parents and children. I believe you picked this for an earlier.
Yeah, I picked it for day 20, and the prompt was middle grade novel.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was the first middle grade novel that I read in a while. So it was a nice change of pace to read something that's more easier to get through, I guess. More breezy. Yeah. And congrats to Jessica on her debut.
For Books and Boba's official pick, it was Alexandra Chang's Days of Distraction. It follows a millennial Chinese American tech writer who moves from Silicon Valley to upstate New York after her longtime white boyfriend gets accepted into a grad school. And it's pretty much about her trying to figure out who she is when all these other people are, labeling her. If you've read Goodbye Vitamin, which was a former pick for our book club, or Chemistry by Wiki Wang, it's kind of a similar vibe from what I've heard. And the book came out in March, so it is a very recent debut.
Yeah. Finally, day 31, the last day of Asian Books Challenge, the last day of May, the last day of Asian American Heritage Month. And the prompt is simple. Next book by an Asian author on your TBR pile. Rira, what was your pick?
I picked two books because I'm reading more than one right now. The first one is American as Paneer Pie by Supriya Kelkar. It's a middle grade novel, and it's about an Indian American girl who learns how to stand up to microaggressions at her school. And I think it's a very important topic, especially considering a lot of the horrible things that are happening right now. It's really important for younger readers to gain empathy and to know why racial microaggressions are bad and how it can be a toll on the people that it's targeted towards. And the book comes out in, I think, the first week of June. I think it's June 9th when it comes out. And the second book that I picked was Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch. And it's about not a teenage witch, I guess like a preteen witch, who doesn't have a lot of magical powers, and she's supposed to pass this magical test. Otherwise, her powers will be gone forever. So one of the test requirements is that she has to live in a town, and she has to pretty much use magic to help out the town. And what she does is open up a repair shop. So she uses small magic to help out the villagers. It gives me a lot of Kiki's Delivery Service vibes, and I'm a sucker for it. So I'm nice. Really excited to get started on reading it.
Yeah. And I totally cheated for this one because I picked the book that we'll be reading for June 2020 as part of Books and Boba, because technically it is on my TBR list. And that is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, translated by Ginny Tapley Takamori. And it's a book that we've covered before, right? When it was announced for translation.
Yeah.
And it's Rira and I were talking and we figured let's put a moratorium on heavy reads for a little bit. We want to read something that doesn't fill us with existential dread. And so this is I guess it's a slice of life story about a woman who works at a convenience store.
Yeah, it's a quirky book from what I've been told. It's about a 36-year-old Japanese woman who has worked at a convenience store for 18 years. And she's perfectly happy. But her family and the people around her are like, what's wrong with you? You're in a dead-end job. You should be getting married. And what happens is she enters like a fake relationship with this.
Oh, now I know why you picked this book.
No. The thing is, it's a fake relationship, but not really. There's like no romance involved. It's just like, hey, everyone, I have a boyfriend, but really she does not have a boyfriend. But yeah, like from what I've heard, the main character is very quirky. She seems to be aromantic, asexual. So yeah, like from what I've heard, it's a really fun read and it's very short. I don't think it's 200 pages even. So I figured that you and I will get through it fairly quickly.
And I'm very excited to delve into the world of Japanese convenience stores because...
Oh my God, they're magical.
Yes.
Yes.
Do we know if it's a 7-Eleven or a Family Mart?
I don't know.
Or a Lawson's.
Lawson's. Man. I miss Japan. I want to go back one day.
But yeah, that was our last book pick for Asian Books Challenge 2020. Rira, thank you so much for putting this challenge together. And thank you everyone listening who participated on Twitter or Instagram. It was really, really great to see everyone's book picks and everyone participating. And I want to say that we helped a lot of people realize how many books by Asians there are out in the world, both upcoming and existing. Yeah.
Just looking through the hashtag, I'm really impressed by the sheer diversity of books by Asian authors. I hope that this challenge really encouraged people to read outside of their comfort zones and to pretty much like, please continue reading books by Asian authors all year round. like, I know it was Asian Heritage Month, but for us, it's always Asian Heritage Month. Like, we read a book by an Asian author every month. And even then, there's no way we can catch up to all of the great books that are coming out every year. So I'm really glad that this challenge put some pretty obscure books on the map as well.
Yeah, and that will also do it for this episode of Books and Boba. Stick around. Our discussion of our May 2020 book club pick, The Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston, will be coming at you probably in a few days later this week. But yeah, we'll see you next time on Books and Boba. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rira Yu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey, I'm Phil Yu, and you may know me from a blog called Angry Asian Man.
And I'm Jeff Yang, author, journalist, and celebrity dad.
We host a podcast called They Call Us Bruce, an unfiltered conversation about what's happening in Asian America.
Each week or so, we host a discussion about some of the most vital and interesting topics in our pop culture and our community, bringing in guests who are shaping and informing this thing called Asian America from Hollywood to DC and beyond.
We got media, entertainment, food, family, politics, representation.
The good, the bad, the WTF of it all.
So check us out wherever you get your podcasts or at theycallusbruce.com.
Peace.
Peace.